I think there's an all-points bulletin out for John Kerry. The Biden administration official was spotted on an American Airlines flight without his mask on. Have they caught him yet? Have they apprehended him? Tucker Carlson last night pointed out how John Kerry, after getting caught on a commercial flight in first class, of course, but at least he's on a commercial flight. He didn't use one of his wife's private jets. He's on a commercial flight without his mask on, reading. He wasn't eating. He wasn't drinking, which is a real no-no. As Tucker pointed out, surely they've arrested him by now.
I want to take a quick break mid-show to bring you a pretty upsetting image. And no, it's not CNN's court eunuch in his skivvies. It's even worse than that. It's John Kerry flying on an American Airlines flight without a mask. Now, at first we thought it was fake because Kerry was flying commercial, and because, of course, he told us that not wearing masks was immoral. Wearing a mask was setting an example.
You cannot have a president of the United States setting an example for people not having a mask and then making it into a political issue.
But he wasn't wearing a mask. Has he been apprehended? Well, as of right now, John Kerry appears to be on the loose out there. But don't worry, we've already called the mask police as good citizens. No word on whether Kerry was dragged physically off the plane, but then he wasn't an elderly woman at a Bank of America franchise in Texas, so probably not. If anything, Kerry's probably hoping he'll get banned from flying commercials so he can get back on his private jet and spew some carbon.
Tucker's point, really got me to thinking about the 65-year-old woman in Galveston, Texas. You've seen the video by now, right? She got taken to the ground, handcuffed, dragged away, kicking and screaming. Evidently, she got her foot broken because she was in a bank in Galveston, Texas, without a mask. Now, can you tell me what the difference is? What accountability is John Kerry going to have for flying commercial on an American Airlines flight, sitting next to someone, incidentally, without a mask on? His mask was dangling from his ear. Now, I believe Kerry has tried to respond by saying it was momentary. Oh, really? It was momentary? You see the picture. He's got the mask dangling off of his left ear, and he's reading a book. He took his mask off. You can't do that on a flight, on a commercial flight. In fact, isn't it worse to sit next to people on an airplane maskless than it is to stand in the middle of the lobby of the Bank of America in Galveston, where no one's within 6 feet of you, and you're standing there being yelled at and screamed at and arrested for not wearing a mask? I had a buddy of mine argue with me about this 65-year-old woman in Galveston. We need to talk to her. In fact, we're embarking on a new project, and I think you're going to start really appreciating some work we're going to be doing on the Mike Gallagher podcast. We're going to kick it off with a long-form interview with Fox News Channel's Dana Perino, because I happen to like Dana Perino a lot. Tomorrow you'll hear her on the radio, but then you're going to hear, if you're interested in subscribing to our podcast, the long-form conversation we're going to have with Dana Perino. But those are the kinds of people we want to talk to. I'd like to talk to this lady in Galveston, and maybe we'll have that conversation. We'll see if we can reach her and find out what it's like to be dragged away from, thrown to the ground, handcuffed, and taken into a patrol car and presumably fingerprinted, mugshot taken, booked, right? She went to jail, didn't she? And what was her crime? She was in a Bank of America without a mask on? And she didn't want to leave? She wanted her money out of the bank? I'd love to revisit my argument with my pal Mark Davis in Dallas, because Mark said she should have complied. Mark said if she would have obeyed and put her mask on or left when the police told her to, she wouldn't have been arrested. Now, I have a hard time arguing with that. He's probably right. But in the scheme of things, how do you reconcile John Kerry going maskless on an American Airlines flight and the lady in Galveston wanting to withdraw money from a Bank of America branch in Galveston, Texas, without her mask on? I mean, we get that John Kerry is an elitist who thinks the rules don't apply to him. We understand that. I'm just talking about masks and COVID requirements in general. I have flown a number of times during the pandemic, not as much as I normally would, but I've flown 4 or 5 times. Listen, you do not even begin to take that mask off, except you can take the mask down if you are eating a peanut. Presuming there's nobody on the plane who has a peanut allergy, because don't worry, they'll then make an announcement that you can't eat a peanut because somebody might have a peanut reaction. But if you want to have a sip of water, you're allowed to take that mask down for the sip of water. But John Kerry wasn't doing any of that. He wasn't eating or drinking. He was reading a book. You can't do that. Why didn't the flight attendants correct him? Why didn't they drag John Kerry off the plane in handcuffs, break his foot, like they did the lady apparently in Galveston? And somebody told me the lady got arrested again at the Home Depot. I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe she's a little kooky, but apparently she keeps getting arrested. But, she also might be just somebody who's trying to make a point. She doesn't believe in these mask mandates. And I have a hunch I'm talking to a lot of people who feel the same way.